Today, everybody, today we are all guinea pigs. This is my very first stream since I have hopefully fixed my computer. Hopefully. So let me tell you all this story, right? So a very generous bug got me some nice expensive mayonnaise off of my throne, right? Some thermal paste. Some computer mayonnaise. So so I got it, right? I got it in the mail and I was like, okay, I don't have anything else to do for the rest of the night. It was still pretty early. It was still like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., right? And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna try and change out my thermal paste on my computer. I'm gonna try and do it, right? So, I grab my computer, I unplug everything, I open up the case. And it was like, it'd been so long since I opened up my case that, I opened up my computer case once and I already felt like Serial Experiments Lane all in there. Like in my underwear on the floor with my computer on the floor and like, the case open. I was like, I was going into the wired here, right? So I opened it up and okay, so there was two issues. There was two things I needed to fix with my computer, right? So one of the issues was, okay, it's been about 5 years since I... It's been about like 5 years since I had built my computer. And you're supposed to change the thermal paste every once in a while, right? Like I don't know how often, but I know it's supposed to be not every 5 years, right? You're supposed to change it, every once in a while, right? To keep your computer running well. And so, because I keep having these crashes, I kept thinking, well, maybe it has something to do with the thermal paste. Maybe it's just overheating. Maybe it's not getting enough power. Maybe if I change it, it'll run better, right? And I should do it. The other issue I had was that I needed to check some of the wiring going from my power supply to my graphics card. Because I had it plugged in a specific way that made it so that possibly the graphics card wasn't getting enough power. Pretty simple stuff. Not really anything complicated, right? Nothing really that complicated. And so, I'm sitting there like all like Serial Experiments Lane, right? Like my computer on the ground, I got my screwdrivers. And I go over to my heatsink and the CPU, and I'm like screwing. And I'm screwing and I'm screwing and I'm screwing and just nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. So I'm screwing and it's like, I'm getting a little frustrated, but I'm like, you know what? Surely, it's gonna take a little bit. So I'm there for like 10 minutes and I go into the Bug Discord channel. We have a Bug Tech channel, right? And thankfully people like Soleil and Nerd, who do IT for a living, were awake. So I was like, hey guys, I just have to unscrew this, right? Like I was just double checking what I had to do. How many caches were in your computer? There actually weren't many. The inside of my computer was actually pretty clean for once. I cleaned it kind of recently, only a couple months back, so it was still pretty clean. So anyway, I'm screwing, I'm like trying to like do it, and I'm like, well, all the screws, they keep rotating. There's not really any pressure on any of these, so it seems like they're unscrewed. But I would try and wiggle off the heatsink, and it wouldn't come off. And I was like, it must be screwed on still, because it won't come off. The heatsink won't come off. And I didn't want to put in a lot of pressure because it's computer parts, right? Like, what am I gonna do if I break my computer? Like, what am I gonna do with stream if I break it? And then I can't stream, and then I won't know what to do, and then I would have freaked out. So I was trying to be careful. So finally, I'm like, okay, maybe I gotta give it a little bit more pressure. Hopefully I don't break anything. Hopefully I don't break my motherboard. Hopefully everything's okay. So, I finally I finally was able to bring off the heatsink. And I was like, okay, I must have unscrewed everything just fine. It felt a little weird. I don't know why I had to unscrew the screws for like 15 minutes. Maybe I was just dumb and doing something wrong. So, I clean it up, I do everything fine, I put on new thermal paste, I put on the mayonnaise and everything. I'm like, okay, it's time. You know, I did it. I'm the real deal now. I'm a real hacker man, and so I put my heatsink back on there. And I'm trying to screw it. And I screw and I screw and I'm screwing and I'm like, surely this isn't supposed to take this long, right? It was like 5 minutes and I was like, well, maybe I'm not doing it right. So I'm screwing, and I'm like, I keep getting a little worried and I keep asking in the Discord. I was like, it's not supposed to be this difficult, right? And I'm screwing more and the screws aren't doing anything. The heatsink isn't screwing onto the motherboard. So I'm just like, what am I doing? What am I doing wrong? So I take a little break and so we're in the Discord. We're trying to troubleshoot. Why isn't my stuff screwing on? Like, my screws were fine. You know, they weren't stripped or anything. The motherboard was fine. When I kind of realized the holes for the motherboard were a little too big, I was like, something's off here. Nerd Blase here in the chat, who is a tech genius, was like, I have a feeling you never installed your backplate on your motherboard. And the backplate would be, you know, something like little backplate that you put, so that it has something for the screws to screw on to, right? So for like 30 minutes, I wasn't screwing into anything. I was just screwing into open air. So of course they weren't screwing in, right? So I turn over my computer. I take off the back of the case. There's no backplate. There's no backplate. And so I'm just like, no. Say it ain't so. Say it ain't so. It was then when I came to the realization that my heatsink was never screwed on to my computer ever. For like the 5 years I've had it. It was there when I came to the realization that for about 5 years, my my heatsink was just attached to my processor just by pure willpower. Just by pure willpower. Welcome you to Kansas. For like 5 years, it was just attached with pure willpower with the thermal sticker I had used before. I don't know how, you guys. I don't know how. I don't know. So, okay. If you're worried about my computer, right? It didn't have overheating issues, right? I used the thermal pad, and to my surprise, it was sticky enough, right? It was sticky enough that it like kept it on really, really, really strong, right? It was just a thermal pad that came with my processor. So all things considered, yeah, it held up alright. So that's why this whole time I figured it was screwed on, because it was on there real tight. It was on there super tight, right? So yeah, it was bootlegged as hell, but it did work. So after realizing that for about 5 years, my heatsink was never actually screwed onto my motherboard. It was just stuck on there, right? It was just slapped onto the motherboard. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it right now. So I put the backplate on the computer. You know, I had to clean off all the paste I had used on the processor and the heatsink, and I reapplied it, and I did everything right. And then I put it back on, and I put the backplate on, and sure enough, it screws in like a dream. Like, no effort. You know, like a couple little turns of the screwdriver here, like bam, 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 and it was ready. It was ready within like a minute. Instead of like the 30 minutes I had spent before trying to screw it on to nothing. Anyway, I learned a lot. lot that night. I learned quite a lot. I learned quite a lot that night. I did have the back plate. So the back plate was actually I know, that's what I kept thinking, Lord. Like, imagine how long the screw had to be, right? I just thought maybe I was doing it wrong. And their screws was like a spring on it, right? So I thought, I don't know, man, maybe I'm doing it wrong. I even tried using a different screwdriver. I was like, I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just doing something wrong, right? So it turns out the back plate the whole time was just like floating in the back of the tower, right? It was hanging out by where the power supply was, because my tower has like, you know, it has the area for the motherboard and everything, and then it has this little like covered part at the bottom. And it hides all the cables and everything so that it looks nice and clean. And it has the it has, you know, the power supply there. And at first I was looking through a box where like some of my I was looking through like a box where I have some spare parts and things like that from when I built my computer. And I found this little like plastic thing. I was like, oh, maybe this is it. And I kept trying to put it, and it wasn't that. That was just another holder for another solid state drive on the back of my computer. And so, yeah, it was just rattling in there, in the case. So my theory is that I probably put the back plate on, right, when I was building the computer. But it falls off. Because it's not like it hooks on or anything. It just fell off. Like, it would just fall off unless you hold it there. And then screw the heatsink on. So that's what it ended up being. Anyway, that's my major computer adventure of the week. And so hopefully, because of that, and because of the cables that I moved and the wiring that I fixed for my graphics card, hopefully we won't have any crashes anymore. Hopefully. My computer didn't explode. Are my temps any different? They seem a little cooler, but not that different, honestly. My temperatures are not very different. My CPU usage seems about the same. Everything seems about normal, honestly. I kind of tried to stress test it a little bit, but as you guys have seen, when it comes to the crashes that I have on stream, there's not really any certain thing that will trigger them. Usually they happen about like 20 minutes to a couple hours after I started streaming and after I have some stuff on. But I turned on my computer, it didn't explode. I turned on all my streaming stuff and all my VTubing stuff, had it on for a couple hours, and I was like logging, right? I was logging my stuff, and hey Benito Mascarini. How did that left-handed screwdriver? Okay. No, it was totally fine. It was just a fucking plate. And so I've kind of stress tested my computer a little bit. It seems fine. I haven't had anything happen yet, but I also haven't streamed since. So, once again, if it does happen, in the case that the stream goes down, you see the not like this guy and the gradient screen, right? The little screen. Please, just wait warmly. Wait there for me. I will be right back. But I hope it won't happen today. And I won't know for sure if it's fixed until maybe a couple days from now. Maybe like a week or so from now. You know, if we're able to go like a week without any crashes, then I think that means I fixed it. I think that means I fixed it. We just won't know. We just won't know. Just won't know.